access to it. Okay, I should have asked you that at the beginning. I just remembered. It's flashing at me that I hadn't done anything with it. Okay, so where we might start, we'll do a quick Cook's tour to start with, if that's okay. I'm on the members homepage of the site. On the left-hand side, you have a list of the key material that's in the system. These ones that we're going through now on the left-hand side, down to strategic business mentoring, are all individual product packages. There's 23 of those. Then we have some mentoring and succession plan. Oh, no, sorry, it goes right down to succession planning. They're all the product packages. We then have some more generic sort of material, which is where I'm going to start, sections and papers. So we'll go to sections and papers, just so you know it's there. This is where we originally started. Originally, we wrote a series of articles. I'll just move that out the way. And there are 69 sections within ESS BIZTOOLS, and they're numbered from 1001 through up to 495. So they're obviously not all being used. They're reserved basically for articles targeted at small and medium enterprises. There's 580 odd articles in this area. So if you want to see what's in a section, you just click on the name of it, and you will then be given a list of the papers that are contained within that section. And if you wish to view a particular paper, you just click on the name of it. You will have an executive summary of what that paper's relating to, so that you might scan that and decide, yes, that's what you need for this particular client that you're going to supply it to. So there's a summary of what's in that document. To view it, just click on the name and then go over here to bring it up onto the system. You can badge this article with Intelligent Business Solutions NQ. Up the top, that's what those double lines there represent. Above that space you can use. You can put a logo, put your address. And there's always a set of contents. So every paper's prepared along the same format. So we've got the contents, and there's a fair bit in this because it's on company directors. And then there's the article itself. There's a number of addendums to this paper, as you can see. And you can then complete some information to supply it, because this is meant to be a briefing for a new company director, which I think is very important, but it's badly underdone. Far too many companies and organisations don't give a new director any briefing at all, and some of them can quite easily get into strife under that. So that's a paper. So that's the general way that papers are produced. And while we're at it, we'll look at the slides. So for every one of those 580 papers, there's a set of PowerPoint slides, which you can place your logo on if you wish. The slides were prepared initially for seminars or webinars, but some firms use them for their staff training, because most of them use our product to do the staff training, to get their team familiar with this whole concept of advisory services. And they can come in handy if you're just talking to a small group of people from one client firm. It helps keep you on track, if you like, especially for younger accountants that might be a bit nervous about talking to clients, especially if they're a bit older and they're bits of fuddy-duddies or something. Okay, so that's the PowerPoint slides, and that process continues right through the system. If we want to go back to the beginning, we just click on sections and papers, but you can click within the area where we were. I'll just go up past 495 though, because there's a very important couple of series of sections here. 500 through, in fact, to 599 is reserved for accountancy businesses. So if you can click into here, you'll get articles relating to ideas for your firm. They work on the same basis. You click onto them, you get the paper, and then you can get PowerPoint slides. These articles are based on my interpretation, based on my observation of accounting over a fairly long period now, mixed in with the background I've had. I was a chief financial officer and company secretary of a listed public company, which gave me a tremendous insight into what goes on in bigger firms. And bigger firms really run themselves as a conglomerate of small businesses. Woolworths do exactly the same. Most other companies do exactly that. They break it down into small businesses and put a manager and an accountant in with a group of those businesses, and then they consolidate it and report back through to their head office. It's the way I think SMEs should be modelling themselves more on, and that means that they've got to be going to you for ongoing accounting advice. But the challenge, I think, you're well down the track by the sounds of things, but the most people in accountancy firm offices have got to get is that you've got to be able to talk the talk on these subjects. You've got to be able to convince your clients that you can be their trusted advisor, that you will get into their shoes. There used to be a businessman in Townsville called David Carmichael. I don't know if you knew him, but he was the Ford dealer, and he used to keep on saying, my advisors have got to be able to walk in my shoes. They've got to really understand what I do, what time I get out of bed, how I run my business. And he was one of the best businessmen I ever saw in Townsville. He's a very good operator. And that was his viewpoint. So we got those articles there, which you can look at your leisure, of course. We just got to go back to sections and papers. And then I want to take you through to leadership. The leadership material has been written by a separate consultant, Peter McDougall. I don't know whether you've heard of him. He was an ex-colonel in the Army. He was one of the last of the Army people that were able to start as a private and work their way through to be a colonel, which he did. He was one of the commanders here in Townsville. He retired here, but then he started doing consulting work for the Army, but also for government departments and big business. I played golf with him, and I said to him one day, why don't you write a series for small businesses so that we can utilize it within here? And this is his product. So there's 9 modules, and they trace the whole leadership story through. It is based on his work, but he's also based it on a couple of the well-known leadership authorities around the world, and it's divided. His material was always divided into a facilitator's guidance and a participant's follow-up, as he called it. So to check it, we'll go into the facilitator's guidance. There is an article, and if we wanted to have a look at the paper itself. So what most of the subscribers are doing, they look at leadership. What I can work out, probably half of them seriously get involved in it and make sure that their team of accountants, and it depends how many they got, of course. You've only got 3, so you could sit down as a group and work through one of these modules, maybe for an hour a week, over 9 weeks or over a period of time, and discuss it and talk about it and work out how it can improve your internal relationships and how it can assist you with your clients. Some of our subscribers, not many on what I've been told, actually have then used this material to be able to consult the clients. That's up to you, of course, and it depends what your clients are looking for. Peter McDougall's phone number's in his material. He is quite happy to talk to you. He loves this stuff. He has done some consultancy work for some of our clients, primarily in the south, in Melbourne and Canberra, where he was down there for other duties, and someone had contacted me, and I said, I'll put you onto him, and he might come and talk to you, which he did. So if you want to talk to him, just give him a ring. And he's obviously very knowledgeable on this whole space. Okay, so that's leadership. and that's the overview on sections and papers. Okay, we have. I'll go to this next one first, then I'll come back to seminars, senior identified seminars. Client mentoring and coaching was a product we put in based on a suggestion from one of our subscribers some years ago. I got a phone call probably an hour later than what it is at present from someone in Perth who said, I've been meaning to ring you for weeks. I've got a outstanding Perth businessman coming to see me in about 2 hours. And I want to impress him that we are a different accounting firm to everyone else in Perth. And I said, okay. Yep. And he said, so I want to be able to show him some of your papers. And I said, well, you've got to show him more than my papers. And he said, yeah, we'll do that. But it's part of the convincing the client. So I wrapped off. We didn't have anywhere near it was probably 10 years ago this all occurred. I wrapped off some papers for him to show the client. And he said, can I make a suggestion? I said, yep. He said, well, why don't you put this into a package so that next week when I got someone that's going to buy a new business, I don't have to ring you and ask what to supply to that client. So this was the result of that. We've currently got 12 modules covering these items. So the whole idea is to use this material to educate clients. You could charge clients for this if you wanted to. It doesn't affect your relationship with us because there's no ongoing royalty as such or franchisees fees or anything payable back to us. But let's say it's an experienced person, which is what the business in Perth was, of course. So what we'd suggest that you would make available to that client is 10 series. Now, some people don't use the full 10 series. It's up to you. But what I think the big challenge that accountancy industry's got is that when I talk to SMEs, and I talk to a lot of SMEs every year, and I say to them, why didn't you go to your accountant to get a business plan done? Because invariably I might be there because Oz Industries has asked me to prepare a business plan under the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant Program or under the Business Growth Program. And at some stage I will say to the client, why didn't you talk to your accountants about this? And he said, oh, no, they're only interested in tax. I said, oh, you know that for sure. He said, that's all I ever get from them. That's all they ever talk to me about it. Now, in a couple of cases, I've known a bit about that firm. And I've said, well, no, I think you're wrong, but we'll finish. But how about we bring them in at some stage? He said, are you happy to do that? I said, I'll do it. Let's bring them in because, and this was someone down south, when I finish this assignment, I'm not going to be at your beck and call, but your accountant is. So why don't we get them involved and let them talk to you and tell you whether they can do some more work. Now, that firm were just putting their toe in the water. They were a little bit interested, but it got them a lot more mobile and underway. They then become a subscriber to us, but that wasn't really the reason I did that. I just wanted the SME operator to understand that their accountants could do more. I think one of the challenges accountants have got is communicating this to the clients. Now, you might have started on the right way to do this, but a lot of people haven't.
I agree. It's actually getting that message back out there that accountants are so much more than tax and compliance. Yeah. It's a key issue, but there's so many other issues around it as well,
Okay, so what I've done, I've now gone into characteristics. So the first series we're going to send this client is what I think is our best paper, to be honest, characteristics of a well-run business. Now, remember, this is a mature, well-run business. We're now trying to take them to the next level. We're trying to scale them up. That should be what you're thinking about. So I'm now going to talk to you. I'm forgetting the guy in Perth that gave me the idea to develop this. We're saying this is going to a client that already might have a turnover of 2, 3, 5 million, but he wants to, or she wants to go to the next level. They want to scale up. So characteristics of a well-run business, what is in the package is, first of all, a letter or an email that you would send them. And this is basically to tell them what's going on. Now, you may have communicated this to them face-to-face, or you may have just sent it to them because you've decided that you've got a group of clients in this category. They're experienced, they're growing, but there's something else in life that they might want to achieve. So this just explains what it's all about. You can produce your own letter, of course, and have that in the system, but that just hopefully breaks the ice. And the other thing we've got in the system is a survey form, because it's very important that you get feedback out of all this material, so you know what your clients like, what they don't like. And if you get them telling you they don't like, which in this case is answering 4 or 5, please send me an email, because we want to know, because they're commenting on the material we're giving them by you. So we're asking them to say whether they like this. Now, my recommendation is that you email this article to them. Not everyone does email. Some of our subscribers tell me they produce those 10 series, print it up, put it into a nice binder, and give it to the client. Personally, I don't like that idea. I think if someone gets 2 inches thick reading material, they probably won't read it. But if they get something they can read in 20 to 30 minutes sent to them every week, I think there's a far better chance that they will read it, and hopefully they'll think about it, make some notes. And what our key recommendation is that someone in your team, it doesn't have to be you, Dianna, or not even Francis, if you've got someone else, rings the client and said, now, did you get that email with that article on characteristics of a well-run business that Dianna sent to you? You got any questions out of it? Do you need some more information? Because unashamedly, what we're trying to do is to use this as a marketing tool, that the client says, yeah, I was interested in all that. There's a few of those characteristics I'd like to know more about, whether I can get them organized for my firm. And then you're creating work. Just pardon me. So that's the form. And as I said, if you get people ticking 4 or 5, please send it back to me. Now, we'll just show you that paper soon. I've talked about it and gave it a bit of a wrap. This is based on a paper Andrew Geddes, who was the founder of Financial Management Research Centre at the University of New England, produced years ago. He had about 10 characteristics. With his permission, we've expanded it and made it 20. And I could probably put a few more in at present, because there's a lot more about social media and technology, but it's really trying to break the ice a bit. And in your system, you will find that there are separate characteristics of different types of businesses. So we've got a retail one, we've got a manufacturing, and we've got a trade businesses. So they're a little bit different, and there's different characteristics. So in the trades, we don't talk about cash control, for argument's sake, although there's going to be no cash in the next couple of years, isn't there? So I'm going to have to rewrite that. Now you'll see these blue, these are all links. You can click on that when you're going through the system. That will take you to another article. You can read that and then come back to where you were, just that type of process. You understand that?
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do here, as I just said, is to get the client to read this and say, gee, I would like to know how I can do that in my business, or am I doing this well enough? So hopefully it's prompting them, because I think it's a good idea to have the client coming to you and say, okay, you've told me about all this. I now understand that you can do all that. I think I'd like to know more about key performance indicators, or I'd like to know more about, can I have weekly profit and losses prepared, which is mentioned in here somewhere in this document. Okay, so that's how that works. There's a couple of forms there which you can look at your leisure, which go with that. And then next week you go to the next one, number 2, series 2, and so on. And you just start sending them out to the client, making the phone calls, following up fairly promptly on any question. I wouldn't let it go that the client gets 10 issues of this sent over 10 or even 15 weeks, and then you contact the client. Some of the original things will be forgotten by then. Why not be contacting them fairly regularly? Because I think the aim should be, according to benchmarking.com, the average accounting fee in Australia is about $3,800 to $4,000 average. I think for business clients, it should be a lot higher than that. And the way to get it is to be showing them that there's a lot more to what an accountant can do, especially a proactive commercial accountant can do for them than just tax. Tax is important, but so are a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And I think I'm talking to the converted with you. So we'll move on.
Yes.
Okay, we'll now go to seminars.
Mm-hmm.
There are 35 seminars stroke webinars in the system. There's a few more we're going to add. So crowdsource funding's not in there yet. It's just in the crowdsource funding package, but we are going to put it across here into this area as well. There's a whole series of material relative to organisational material. So we've presented a general hints on the presentation of a seminar, which you can keep on forgetting to click that, which you can go through and read. I'll just bring it up quickly. So do you present many seminars?
We're just about to embark on that.
Okay, you said it was one of your objectives, yeah. So this is just some material. So you're going to run seminars or webinars, or you're going to try to combine them?
Yep, combination of both.
Okay. So there's some comments here on seminars. I'm going to do one up on webinars. Some tricks of the trade on webinars that we've had to learn over the period. But there's a whole series of items there that you might read and take on board and say, okay, that's not a bad idea. When I was running an accountancy firm, we ran a lot of seminars, but I always made sure we had external people involved if we could get them.
Right.
Never ever paid anyone. I offered a couple of people, but I never ever wanted any money. Cost a few drinks and cups of coffee at times, but they were there because they were also marketing themselves and what their businesses did, and that's a list of where they were from.
Okay.
So that might give you some ideas. There's plenty of people around who are quite happy to come and do a presentation for 40 minutes, and they can break it up a bit as far as the presentations, because they always have a different slant on things when you're presenting a seminar. There's forms in here, and you can go through these yourself. I think there's registration forms. If you're going to use a keynote speaker, there's an invitation, thank you letters, and so on. Just everything that we had in our file that we were using, we put in here. And I went too far then. Now let's get into the seminars themselves. The ones that are numbered over 1,000 are 1 hour seminars, and I ultimately discovered they were the most popular, is the 1 hour seminar. Right. Before that, though, we were quite in the, we started all this material originally way back in the 84, 85 sort of period, and people would turn up for a 3 hour seminar in those days. Some of our clients still use this material. Some of them have got government grants to do specific training for groups, some Indigenous groups and areas like that. So they still use that, so we leave it in there. But we've got a half-day seminar and a one-day seminar. Some firms, that's all they do. They run a one-day seminar every year. And so we've got a program in there for that. And then we get into the ones that are numbered over 1,000, which, as I said, I found to be the most popular seminar. So let's just pick on one. Keynote, key performance indicator. That's what it's about. We've got the organisational material. I'm not going to pull that up. Some of it has been now branded just for this seminar because it's what it relates to. You can have a look at that, but we're just using that master list I just showed you before. But then we've got the material that relates to this particular seminar. So there's 4 papers and there's 4 sets of PowerPoint slides. Now, in actual practice, I think the key thing is the PowerPoint slide. So let's bring that up first. So you could badge the PowerPoint slides and use that by putting a logo on, and then use these as the talking points. Whilst you've got a paper as part of this, which what we envisage is you're going to hand that to the attendee, so they got something to take away. I don't suggest you stand there and just read this material to them.
No.
Use the PowerPoints to have a conversation. Get their feedback. What do they think about? Do they use key performance indicators? What type of business? Some people wrap off to me, they've got about 30 KPIs, and I say, no, you only really need half a dozen, I think, especially per management group. So if they put them all together, they might have 30. But use the PowerPoint slides to guide you through the process to have a conversation. They can read the paper at their leisure. And that will then reinforce what you've said to them, because again, you're on show, whether it's a seminar or a webinar, your firm's on show. You've got to have read the material before you can present seminars so that you're confident in the presentation. And what you're trying to do is convince the client that you understand all this stuff, that they should appoint you to handle it. Okay.
Certainly.
So you've got a whole stack of seminars there in the system that you can present. If we just go back to the list of those. Oh, I went too far then. So in this 1000 series, profit making, differentiation, budgeting, setting prices, KPIs, marketing. I've included marketing because I think it's important. A lot of your smaller clients will really not have anyone else to go to. There's a lot more marketing people now in Townsville than what there used to be. But I think it's still an important area than an account. If you were the CFO of a company, you'd probably be involved in marketing, although these days most big companies do have their own marketing departments. But anyhow, it's there for interest. Human resources, customer. So it's trying to take through what might be the areas that you get called upon relative to performing a chief financial officer service.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay. I'll show you this while I'm here. Members alert.
Yep.
You should have got a members alert today, or if you haven't, it'll be tomorrow for January.
Right.
So members alerts produced each month. There's a video, and then so this is only going to you as a subscriber, as a member. It doesn't, we don't use it in our promotional material. So we try to talk about issues that, pardon me, geez, I've got a couple of more webinars today. I better conserve this voice.
You might need a bit more than water there.
Might need something stronger in it, crowdsource funding is obviously a big issue as far as we're concerned. So primarily because I think it's an ideal opportunity for accountants to claim this space. And I hope the accountancy profession does, because I've seen a lot of things change over the years. At one stage, financial planning was 100% within accountants' sphere of influence. Then it all got changed, and now it's virtually out of control as far as accountants are concerned, what I can see, for most of them anyhow. So that's a bit of an update on what's going on in crowdsource funding. We got more information in the January issue, because we've now got some details as to how much money the companies have raised. There's been $13.4 million raised at least. And I say at least because a couple of the intermediaries' websites don't have any information on them, whereas a couple of them are very informative. But we've also been in those ones, the 4 that have got information, we're able to identify what the businesses are, what their industry is. And it's very interesting, and it's a wide cross-section of businesses, which I think is very, very good, very exciting. So that's just a comment. The corporate governance network we've been operating targeted at company directors of small, medium enterprises. We've been producing video, webinar recordings. It hasn't really set the world on fire, so I'm really debating what we're going to do with that. But that's we've got it there because we've been raising a conversation to our subscribers about it and telling them what's in there. It is, for years I've been complaining about how long it takes big business to pay small, medium enterprises. And I've noticed the Prime Minister's intervened now and basically saying that big businesses got to pay within 20 days, otherwise they won't get federal government contracts. I hope he can enforce that. The Personal Property Securities Register, we do have a due diligence product package. I hate this legislation, to be honest. I think it was very badly conceived, but it's there, it's the law. Nothing much I'm going to be able to do about it. So I think what accountants can do is make sure your clients are protecting themselves. On my reckoning, there's over $450 million lost by businesses not registering on the register. You'll still get businesses that say to you, why should I have to register my assets on a government register? Well, if they don't, they might lose them. So the 7th anniversary is basically up today or tomorrow. 28th of January, I think, was 2012 was the original registration date. So that's now up for the 7-year registrations. It's an ideal time to go back and have a conversation with your clients. Did they have one of those 7-year registrations? If so, the time's up, or it will be shortly. Some of them probably didn't get into some months later. But the big question then is, are they still dealing with that client? Is it still the same issue? Does the registration they had, does it still cover what they're now doing? They may have changed their whole modus operandi. And more importantly, are they going to re-register to continue to get ongoing protection? But what about the clients who haven't done anything about this? And there's got to be thousands of those businesses. It's an ideal opportunity to go in and do a due diligence review. Will take 3 to 4 hours per business. So for an investment of, depending on your charge out rate, but probably under $1,000, they can get a review as to what's happening. So that's the plug there. The Business Plus client newsletter, have you seen it?
No, I don't think I have.
You haven't got one yet because in January we don't produce one in January. But I didn't know whether you'd seen one previously. We always talk about Business Plus. So this is the newsletter we produced for you to send to your clients. You badge it and send it out if you wish. The next issue will be uploaded to our website on the 8th of February. And it's always uploaded at 12 noon Australian Eastern Standard Time on the second Friday of the month. That's when we finalise it. And so we always give a bit of a plug to the what's been included in Business Plus in this update so that people know. We produce an update of list of government grant applications on the deadline dates for Australia and all the states, and you just click on and you can get that. So that's what that's about, the members alert. It's just basically to get you to have a look at what's going on. The Biz Briefs is another series we've been starting, and again, this is to communicate to you. Some people forget what's in ESS BIZTOOLS, so we decided to do this. So we write a short, sharp article on what something's about. So that's the list. We haven't finished this yet. We were doing one every couple of weeks, and I've got to get back onto that now. But if you wanted, so if you had a new person started and they said, well, what's in ESS BIZTOOLS? I'd get them to start on this. They can just bring it up. There is a short video. And then it's a brief overview of what, in this case, Personal Property Securities Register is all about. It's talking about the losses. Some people claim it's lawyers' work, but lawyers tell you it's not their work. Or they'll do the agreements. They've got to do the agreements, but there's a lot more to this than just agreements. And then we've got some key suggestions so that you might think about, and then we've got how you might go about doing this. How would you approach a client? And that's really what this section is about, trying to give you very clear. All this information's in the product package, but this is just meant to be an additional reminder, if you like, of what's in the system.
Yep.
Okay, we talked about Business Plus newsletter. We will go to that. So any questions arisen while we've been going through all this?
No. I think it's pretty straightforward. Yep.
Okay, Business Plus, we've been writing this for nearly 10 years now. So I'll have to get our programmer to see if he can put that round the other way, but you've got to go through to the most recent.
Oh, okay, righto, yep.
164 is the Business Plus newsletter. And so we want the Business Plus itself. So we'll just click onto there. So this is the Business Plus newsletter.
Yep.
It's badged with our name there. We're saying before you send it to a client, take that out and put your own name and logo in there. We badge it because we're quite happy. Evelyn would have asked you if you wanted to give us all your staff's email addresses. And so some firms get 30 or 40 copies of this sent to them because we've got all their email addresses. And that way we know that it's been distributed all around a firm so they can read it and they know what it is. You take that off and send to your clients. It's always 4 A4 pages unless there's a real urgent issue going on somewhere. We write this directed at small, medium enterprises. We don't fill it with tax articles. In fact, you'll find that there's no tax articles in this issue. This is the closest we got to a tax article. Our tax writer produced this. So we utilize a guy who also writes for the Institute. And I keep on saying to him, remember, this is targeted, this is going to SMEs, and they don't want to read all about section this and section that. They just want to know the bare facts. So we restrict taxation materials to things that are of real importance to a small, medium enterprise. Because when I talk to them, they tell me the tax articles are things that their accountant should be reading, not them. That's the sort of response I get. Okay, so we then talked about, and what we're trying to do is to vary these articles so that hopefully there is something in every one of these articles that is of some interest to one of your clients, to your clients. So they can, now some of them might be happy to read every one of them, but some might only say they got something out of one of them. The Bank of Mum and Dad Loans was a terminology that was coined by Kate Carnell, the Small Business Ombudsman, and the Financial Review wrote it up. And when I read it, I thought, geez, that's another reason that some businesses might be interested in crowdsource funding, because they may have got some money off their parents or grandparents, and now they're the parents or grandparents are either wanting to retire or perhaps looking to go into a nursing home. They need a fair bit of money to pay the entry fee, and they might be making noises to their son or daughter or grandchildren, hey, we'd like our money back. Now that can present real problems to a business, as we know. One way that they might like to think about that is if they've got reasonable businesses and they've got some real flair about them and prepared to have a go, they might be interested in crowdsource funding. So I've blended that into that article. We gave them an update on what was happening in crowdsource funding, and we will be doing more in the February issue. The government's announced some proposed changes in the thresholds for large proprietary companies to start from the 1st of July. So we thought we'd mention that. The PPSR, that's the 7th year, so we've obviously got something on that. And we also included some material from the PPSR themselves because they got past the 10 millionth registration, trying to convey to your readers, your SMEs, that there's a whole stack of people, a whole stack of registrations being made out there. Are they registered? You know, that's the obvious question. You'll notice at the end of each article, there's a call to action, which I forgot to mention before. This one up here, if you require any assistance on the renewal of your PPSR, please contact us. This one here, if you'd like to review your systems relative to the application of your risks through non-registration, please contact us. Again, unashamedly, we view this article, this whole package, Business Plus, as being a marketing tool, trying to get them to talk to you. Now, some people edit that and put, please contact Francis, or your surname, Francis Murray. You can do that if you wish. You can edit it. Takes a little bit of time. The federal government was told to pay big business promptly, so we put that in. The good and bad news was some economic material of what's happening around Australia. And then we had something on customer satisfaction. And then we got attention accountants. Now, attention accountants is in the system to give you an indication of some supplementary material that you could use as a reference library, if you like, on a particular subject. So we got some material in there on crowdsourced funding. If you or one of the team was not really familiar with crowdsourced funding, I'd suggest before you send the newsletter out, you familiarize yourself with it, because you might get a client ring you. And remember, this is going out now as your newsletter, because you've got rid of our name there and you've got your own there. So that's what it's there for. We suggest you remove that section then, attention accountants, and replace it with something of your own. It might be one of your clients has won the Business of the Year award. You might be going to run a seminar, webinar, so you could do a bit of promotion. You can put anything you like in there, or you can just put a picture.
Okay.
It's up to you. So that's the newsletter. We produce 2 extra newsletters in the month of May. One is on the federal budget as it affects small, medium enterprises, and the other one is on the as like an end-of-year tax planning checklist, which we have been producing for years, and people seem to like it. So that's Business Plus. If you've got any ideas or thoughts on articles, you can send me an email, because I scratch my head some days and I think, what are we going to write about this month? And sometimes we get some suggestions. Okay. On this Cook's Tour, what I want to take you to now is where I think you, pardon me, I think where you should start in making this product very effective for you, and that's, I should have stayed a bit longer on the heading. I've gone to Business Advisory Services Introduction, because we wrote this for this very purpose, obviously, to assist you to implement this material. I want you to implement it so that you will at least cover our fee, but preferably get about 4 or 5 times our fee, so that you can say you've got a return on the investment, because obviously there's your staff wages come in, costs come into the overall fee recovery. There, in most of these product packages, there are videos and webinars that will guide you through the process. And then in this area, we've got these modules. Now, what we normally suggest is, first of all, you appoint a facilitator. It might be you, Dianna, or it might be Francis. Could be someone else. Some firms get a external consultant in. It's up to you. To bring the team together. Now, you only got a small team, so I think it's going to be a lot easier for you. My recommendation is you sit down and review this material for about 1 hour. In some of them could be 2 hours, but with a very small team, probably only 1 hour a week, so that over a 3-month period, you work your way right through it. Now, some firms don't do that. I've known of a firm that sat down in a day and a half, 2 days, went through and did the lot. They said, no, we'll sit down, we'll get everyone in. But that was at a period of the year which they believed they had they weren't busy. It was probably June or July, and that's what they did. But for most people who have still got workload to get through, that's a bit difficult, just downing tools for a couple of days. But the reasoning was if they went to a seminar or a conference somewhere, that's what they'd be doing. Now, when you go into this, you get the name, the numbers are the numbers we've put on things to know where it is, because there's thousands of articles in ESS BizTools, and tracking where everything is becomes a bit of a problem. BAS is Business Advisory Services, not that other BAS. Originally, we were going to call it something else, but the industry seemed to be calling this whole area Business Advisory Services, so we had to change our abbreviations. It lists what's in the material, in the package, and you can just click on and get any of these, but I'm just going to show you. So I'm just giving you a run through there. So there's a fair bit of material here. Some of this is referred to later in more detail. So it's with the materials there if we mention it, so you get an idea of what's included. So the procedure control form, you will find the procedure control form follows you in every product package that we've got. It wasn't put into our systems when we started the product package concept 3 or 4 years ago for the first time, but then we found people were not, we had all different ways of trying to work through the material, so we had to get some organization about it. So this is the form. You can badge it. You put your name on it, of course. It's an internal form. And this is where we're saying this is the reading we think you should be doing. You need to read that paper. You need to read that article, this article. So it's giving you an idea of some of the reading that we think you should be doing as far as this preparation. And then we've got a checklist for introduction of business advisory services. Now, you haven't got a partner in the firm, have you?
No.
No, okay. So you've probably worked in firms where there's been partners. It's amazing what happens in some partnerships. Some partners don't communicate, and that might not surprise you, but they don't. And so we've got a form in here, which you can look at, of course, which is for partners in firms. So if there's 3 or 4 partners, they fill in their own form. And in some instances, not all, but in some instances, that's the closest they'll get to communicating with one another, because they've never really openly said what they really want to do in an accountancy firm and what they don't want to do. So this tries to drag it out of them. We've also got a form for a team member. So if we want to go and look at those, we'll just click on. And bring it up. Now you can get these forms from that original list that I showed you, but I just thought I'd show you just how that worked. So this is something that Francis, you might complete, but obviously if you had more team members and you obviously have one other there, you can get them to complete this. What we're trying to find out from this form is what don't they like about their job? What don't you like, Francis? Now and again, we find that someone's got some skills and knowledge that people aren't aware of, or they're not using, or they've forgotten that they were that. In one firm, I found that an accountant had been a journalist in a previous life, and that firm was struggling with putting out social media type releases, and they had a journalist on their staff. So they said, oh, okay. But she was a rather shy lady. She'd never really been asked anything about her previous journalistic career. And she obviously didn't like it. She'd gone on to become an accountant, but she knew how to write articles. So, and here's this firm struggling to get things out. So, and then we ask, what do you like doing? And it's amazing some of the answers you get to these questions at times. Do they want to do financial planning? And then are they interested in any of these business advisory services areas? Because I don't like the idea of forcing people into business advisory services. So I say to people like you, if someone says they don't want to do it, well, don't force them, because they won't. Some people, I find when I first talk to firms, and some of them obviously got more accountants than what you've got, virtually 100% will say they want to be involved in advisory services. But then after we've been through the 13 weeks of training, and they've realised that, gee, there's another level of work you've got to do here. It's just not all parties. There's additional reading. They've got to understand corporate governance. They've got to understand. I really suggest that they read the Financial Review every day. These days, digital delivery in the main, but they read it. They read the Australian. They know what's going on, because if you're going to perform a CFO type role, I think you need to have that knowledge. And some people say to me, "Oh no, taxation's hard enough to keep up to date with," and that's okay, because firms probably don't want everyone in their office, unless it's a firm like yours, which seems as if you're going to try to specialise in a lot of this work, and that's great. But a lot of firms, of course, still have a whole stack of taxation work to get done. But the other benefit of having everyone do this, though, is so there's an awareness, because my observation, and it happened in my own firm, is that where you had, say, people come doing financial planning, there used to be a bit of a reluctance of some of the accountants to actually even refer clients across to the in-house financial planning. And I understand that's still a big issue in some firms that they have great problems with. But if the whole team understand what you're trying to achieve in business advisory services by having gone through this training process, I think there's far more potential for them to cooperate in making sure that the clients are aware of it. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's what that's all about. And I'm just going to, how's your time?
We're fine. You tell us.
Okay, right. I haven't got another webinar shortly, but I just want to show you a couple of other things in here if I can, and then I'm going to suggest you start working through all this, and we'll have another conversation in a couple of months. Or you can ring me in the meantime if you have any questions.
So your budget and cash flow forecast, are they actually Excel templates to be used?
Yeah,
or
there's templates. No, there's templates there that you can go through and use. But I just wanted to show you. There's a. I'll go back into it because I didn't mean to click on that. I wasn't thinking. There's a an important section in. Pardon me. In the training program that relates to SME needs analysis that I just want to show you. So there's a separate section here called the youth. So we go through here looking at team training and leadership and marketing and that, and you can work your way through there. If you want to give me a ring, please do so. But the SME needs analysis is also based on a FMRC document that was produced many years ago, which with Andrew Geddes' permission, we have expanded.
Yeah.
Did you know Andrew Geddes at all? Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't actually.
Okay. Ever get a chance to listen to him? I'd recommend you do so. He's just retired as the chair of Green Cross Limited, the veterinary surgery business.
Oh, okay.
Started by Glenn Richards. Glenn Richards was the CEO. He did 11 years as chair of that, and he consults to accountancy firms all over Australia. He keeps on telling me he's retired, but he's not. He does specialist work, and he's doing a lot of work in the higher levels of upskilling at present, and that's our next project in ESS BIZTOOLS, to produce material to assist people to start upskilling their business operations.
Okay.
So the SME needs analysis, as you work through the material, it will explain to you that I think it's a good idea to get feedback from your clients. That's why I like the idea of educating them on what you can do, running seminars so they understand it, and then giving them this form to ask them what they think of all this. Do they need any of this?
Okay.
So this is saying your current business operations. Are you happy with your results? Do you want us to do you get a benchmarking report? Do you want to do some of that? Do you understand your ratios? What's your debtors days outstanding? Now and again, you'll get people say, well, how do I calculate debtors days outstanding? Which tells me that they don't know what they are. Their budgets, they might have some things in marketing, and that might mean that you refer them on, but some of that's pretty basic stuff. The same with human resources. Do they understand what's going on? And we've got some material that we got from Blackstone Business Group, who's one of our affiliates, on business management, on employee management. Customers, have they got a CRM? Is it working for them? What do they know about their competitors? Do they need some modeling done? You know, number of customers, frequency, tinkering with the gross profit percentage, what will that do to them? Do they need more training on corporate governance? Because they're going to expand their business, they're going to get a couple of extra directors. Most definitely, if they're going to go into crowdsource funding, a lot of these people are going to need to upskill themselves in corporate governance, I think. Do they understand government grants? Are they getting any? Or are they whinging because they've heard their mate down the road, their competitor's got a grant and they didn't know anything about it? Some SMEs get very upset about that if they hear that their competitor's got a grant that no one ever told them about. Where are they on the Personal Property Securities Register? Are they doing research and development? If so, are they a company? Otherwise, they won't get the tax rebate. So it's this sort of questioning. Are they doing exports? Are they claiming the Export Market Development Grant? Do they need to improve their management of costs? Or are they interested in raising capital? They need a business plan. Are they thinking about retiring? Now, that's a fair list down to 1.27. That's just looking at their current business. Now, if you gave that to your clients, what do you think you'd get back?
Sorry?
If you gave that to some of your clients, do you think they'd come back with some notes there saying, what's this mean? I think I could do with that. Can you talk to me about this? Do you think you get that response?
I would think so. It's extremely comprehensive and quite complex. So whether it's the fear of not knowing, whether they stop first, but it definitely provides a lot of questions,
Then we move into taxation planning. Then we move into the futuristic stuff, which is some of which we might have covered, but do they know what their business is worth? I think it's a good idea to have the business valued every year and show them what their wealth position changed in the last 12 months, because it might not be all as such in the P&L account. There could have been other external factors, risk management, and so on. You know, have they got wills? Have they got appropriate buy-sell agreements? Have they been updated? Are they going to be worth anything if an unfortunate accident occurs, and so on? So that's that material. It's part of that training program to get you up to date on all that. Okay?
Yep, wonderful.
Now,
great.
What I want to now quickly do, if I can, is take you across to grants. Have you had a look at grants?
No, when I rang your office around the subscription, everyone said that she needed to turn ESS grant on. So no, I haven't been there yet.
Oh, haven't you? Okay, I'll chase her up. So you get a separate.
Check to see whether. Yeah.
You get a separate access to this. It's on a separate website, as you can see. So you just log in. There's some explanations of what the terminology means there, which you can read.
Yep.
And what we've done, we've gone through hundreds of state and federal, mainly federal, state and territory grants, and have worked out what they're for. So to give you an example, if I go to one that I've been practicing with, so this is just shows you the whole process, what you can do with a client, test client, this one. I'll go back to the beginning. So the first, you put the name of the client in. The first question is, what are they? What type of entity? Because grants vary depending on entities. So we've decided this one was a company. They do some exporting, so we clicked yes. They don't import because there are some fringe, vague sort of grants that can apply to both of those. That's why we want to know. We need to know the number of full-time equivalent employees, and these are the bands that the various grants use. So this hypothetical we said had 16 employees. They need an ABN. That's why we've clicked yes. And years in business is also very important. And okay. The turnover is important. Turnover. So they're the turnover milestones that can affect. We said this one had a turnover of 6 million, so they're in the 1.5 to 20 million. They need GST. In the main, they shouldn't be tax exempt. And we ask them, are they involved in R&D? Now, this has got no connection as to whether they're a company or whether they've spent $20,000 on R&D. It's just a general question, because some of the grants, I think if they've been doing R&D type work, it gives a bit of an indicator that they might be potentially eligible for a grant. Nothing to do whether they're going to claim it as a tax deduction. So we hit save at that. We then go to address, and the key thing here is the postcode, and the postcode then calculates what the region is, and this one's out of regional Australia. That just repeats the financial. The business industry code is normally what's been shown on the tax return for the business, but no government department ever checks that. They're not worried about that. Sometimes the code can not reflect what the business is currently doing, as I've discovered a couple of times. And also you can have as many codes as you like. We had someone that had about 20, 25 or something, which they sent us, and it went on for pages. So the system will accommodate it, but they must have had a very varied business to have that many potential codes being used. So, okay, we put that in there, and we're happy then to go up here and hit search grants.
Okay.
Now, I've been playing with this, so we've already had one potentially ineligible, and we've got 14 that are potentially eligible, and there's 15. So originally we would have had 29 turned up here. That's where they go to originally, independent grants. And then we've got to answer, you've got to answer some more questions. And I'll just find something here that might be of interest. This was a Queensland company, obviously. So a lot of them are. Okay, so we go to the wages scheme, disability. You always get like an executive summary. This is what this grant's all about. So read that and say, oh yeah, that might be of interest to this client. We have a indicator as what the funding is. And obviously that varies. It could be $1 million or it could be $1,500. We have an application toolkit. The first thing you click is the paper, and that will give you a commentary on what this grant's about, which you could print for your client and show them. We've also prepared, everyone's prepared application requirements. So we've gone through and dissected what the government department want to know for this application. And we've done this up, as you can see, for accountants to use if you want to work out how long it's going to take. Now, this is a pretty short one. Some of these go for pages because there's a fair bit of work in doing the grant. But that's there, so it's part of the system that you've got. So we get to the end of that and you say, okay, what's the additional criteria? Now, we're a bit lucky here. There's only 2 other questions. In some instances, there can be 6 to 8 questions. What we're trying to do is we're at the top of a funnel and we're going down to the bottom. And when we get to the bottom, we want to have done everything we can to clearly identify that this client is potentially eligible for this grant. We can't guarantee it to them because they've still got to apply. And there could be all sorts of reasons. The grant might have finished, they might have run out of money, or the client could have a black name within the government department, which I found out some years ago when we had our business contracted to the government for the COMET program, Commercialising and Emerging Technology, and I found that there are some people that are on a blacklist. So no matter how good this says they are, they won't get a grant because they mucked up on something else. Are you considering the employment of a person with a disability? So we answer yes. Will the employment be for at least 8 hours per week for at least 13 weeks and have a reasonable expectation they'll have ongoing work? We say yes. Now, what happened then is I did that apply now came up. If we click on that, it will take us to the government website where you can start the application process. We don't, if you answer no, and no is not always an incorrect answer, but if you answered an answer that wasn't right, it would put it into the list of that you weren't eligible. So if we do that now, let's show you. So that's gone. And if I close out now and I go back up here and I go to potentially ineligible, we had one, it's now two. Okay?
Yep, I can.
Now, if you say, oh no, I made a mistake, I need to go back, so all you do is go back to there and click yes. That's come up again.
Okay.
And this time when we close, it's going to put it into potentially eligible. Down the bottom there somewhere. There it is there, right? So we've now got 14, we had 13. So all you do at this stage now is say we've got to produce the report because the client's coming in this afternoon. It will say the name of the client. It will then say Intelligent Business Solutions NQ. It's got today's date. And it gives a executive summary and details as to what the grant's about.
Okay.
The fine print saying, in effect, don't go out and spend the money yet. You've still got to go through the application process. So that's the grant program. So what its function is to assist you to identify grants that the client might be eligible to apply for. When do you do this? I suggest you utilize it in conjunction with the preparation of the annual financial accounts for the client. So as you're doing it, it only takes you 3 or 4 minutes to do that profile information. It will take a little bit longer for someone who knows the client to answer those supplementary questions. On my reckoning, probably about, I still think in units, 2 units, so 12 minutes. We used to use 6-minute units. Can't get rid of old accountants.
No.
But around 12 minutes to answer those questions. You could do this with the client sitting opposite you. You could do it with the client on the end of a phone if you wanted to and get their input into it. And then you're able, in a very proactive manner, to be able to present this document to them. Now, the next question is, what happens now? Now, the client's going to look at this. In my experience, most clients will be very appreciative. There are some people, and you probably will know who they are in your client list, who don't want anything to do with a government agency of any type, colour, political allegiance or whatever. They're just not interested. They're I don't know, they're scared and they're paranoid about them is probably the way I'd describe them. So I wouldn't even bother with them, to be honest. If you know a client's like that, well, why even go through this process? But for most of them, they'll be very appreciative that you've brought this to their attention. Okay, so you won the brownie points. What happens next? The application's got to be submitted. Very few clients, I think, will then pack this all up and say, okay, I'll go and do the application, or I'll get my son or daughter to do it. They may do that if they've got a son or daughter who's capable of filling in forms. But most of them, I think, are going to turn around and say to you, well, what do we do now? And you say, well, we can do the application, but we're going to open a separate work in progress fee file for you, and we will bill you in that way. Some people, I try to talk them out of it, still tell me they're going to charge a percentage of the grants that are secured. I view that as being contrary to what the Institute and the CPAs and everyone else is now saying, the way professional services have got to be supplied. I think it should be on a fee for service. Give the client a proposal, do it that way and bill them. And
I agree.
What you need also to make sure is the client understands that they're going to be expected to be part of the application process. No government department's going to approve them without their officer interviewing. Do you know Ramona Bollard? You know, so she'll want to interview them and understand. And she's got to sign off back to Oz Industry that this client will play the game. The last thing government departments want to be involved in is a client that won't cooperate, won't fill in the forms, won't be available for whoever's been appointed to do the work. That's just bad publicity, and it causes reports to get written. It's the sort of thing they've got to report to the minister if there's been any adverse criticism come in. So they'd rather not get started on that in the first instance. So in her case, because she's the Oz industry rep around here, she's got to make sure that this client's going to play their role. Now, once you've done all that, the next stage and the real income stage for you out of grants is that a significant amount of the work that grants will fund, that after all you've been involved in articulating in the application, is things that a firm that wants to do advisory work can do. Business plans, budgets, cash flows, debtors analysis, corporate governance training, training a management team. They're just some of the things I've done, and therefore you can do. And we've tried to make sure we got material to cover all those things within ESS BIZTOOLS. That's how grants work.
Wonderful. Just with the ESS BIZTOOLS grant platform, so the report actually comes out already pre-branded, is that correct?
This is the report here.
Yeah. So
that will have your name there.
Okay. So is there a logo and all that sort of stuff there, or is it just quite generic words?
No, we haven't got logo. We haven't got provision for logos on there.
Okay, no, it's okay. I was going to say Evelyn hasn't put any of that collateral on me, that's all.
Evelyn what?
Evelyn hasn't asked for logos or anything like that.
No.
But that's okay.
Now, Evelyn heard what I said before. She's the backup on these things. So she's listening.
Oh yes, right.
Your login and password is in the email that went to your junk mail. Some of your things went to junk emails, did they?
Okay, right. Yeah.
So
probably.
Evelyn will resend that to you, then, eh?
Lovely. Fantastic.
And then all you do is you just do what I did. You go in there and do it. You could also use the grant program at any other time during the year. I used to always, before we had a system like this and we were doing grant work when I was running a firm, I used to put it down to be done in June and July, because I reckon accountants ran out of work in June or July. These days I get funny looks from younger accountants, including my son, who says that doesn't work anymore. But I think firms do run out of work. In fact, I proved that with a couple of firms in the last 12 months. And having it all set up so that the team can just move into doing grants, doing the assignment. You might show it to the client until you're talking about their annual accounts, but at least it's done. It doesn't then have to be done when you're flat out doing other things. I just think it's a great way to communicate with your clients that you're proactive.
Yep. So am I right, is that by logging in all the details of a client, so your test client, their turnover and all that sort of stuff, as a new grant becomes available, will that be populated into the potentially eligible grant?
Our program is working on that. And I have to check with him. I don't think that's been finalised yet. But where it will come up is when you go back in the next year. Yeah, so if you leave the client in the system, which is what we suggest, so that next year you just go in and you might change the turnover. Only one or two things might be changed. They might have shifted. They might have, if they got another branch, so they got one out in Mount Isa. Well, there's some different grants that are available in other places to what's here in your main operation, and you then go in and ask the system to recheck. Yeah, if there's been more grants, new grants, it then picks them up.
Right, that's what I was looking for. Okay.
What I was really answering you, we were trying to work on. If something come out in 2 months' time, to give you an email to say a new grant's come out. But whilst my programmer told me you could do that, when we sat down and really did it, tried to do it, I should have said, it didn't quite work, and I don't think he's finalised that yet. The first time he told me he'd had a few red wines, he was very optimistic.
For me, it's a case of, say, loading up so many clients and then, say, periodically checking it and going, oh, there's a new grant. That one is
Grants will help generate a fair bit of work for you. And the other thing is, if you know Ramona and you talk to James Doyle at the State Government Office, James?
Yes, I have met James.
Make sure he's aware that you're interested and proactive in doing grants. You will probably get some referrals because there's a lot of accountants who are not interested in this. The government officers get a bit tired of those firms, and basically if they get a client from them, they don't even suggest they go because they know they won't cooperate. So they go off then and suggest go to these other people. So they normally have a list. There's 2 or 3 names. These are firms who we know will do it for you. As I said before, over the years I've done a lot of work in that space, and I haven't had accounting clients for 20 years. So it's only been consulting clients, which are people you act on for a while. Most of them then go. Some of them are still around, but they're ones where I'm more a CFO type role. Okay, so does that give you enough to get started, get underway?
Absolutely. So the use of the content in terms of, as you said, rebranding, it's white labeled so we can deliver those as branded as our documents.
Yes.
Using some of the documents on website as well, retaining the copyright on the bottom of it, so that we can provide that information. Yep.
Our rules say though that's in a secure section on your website.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So in other words, it's only your clients or your people who you are trying to get clients, I suppose, who you've trusted to give an access to your website in a secure section.
Yeah.
And that's to protect everyone. You're paying us a subscription. I don't want other accountants all over the place just being able to go into your website and get access to all our material. You're responsible for badging those articles, of course, because you want to put your name on them. And but most certainly, some firms do that very well, and they create whole libraries of information that their clients can do, including the ability for a client to make an appointment at 3 a.m. when you're probably not going to be there to take that phone call. So if they're up at 3 a.m. and they want to make an appointment to see you, next week, well, they can do so. Obviously, also, if they want to get access to material, some firms charge for that. And if you want an idea on pricing, just contact us and we'll let you know. But that's up to you. Some make it a marketing tool. Others do charge for it because they've got other material there that they're charging for.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfect. Lovely. I would suggest that we probably will be in touch in future. It's been very comprehensive and there's a lot there. I have already started moving through some of the content. So, I think it's a great tool and great opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else?
You've been through the crowdsource funding webinar, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So that is of a particular interest.
That's why I didn't cover it then. But if you want any more on crowdsource funding, and if you're looking, some of our subscribers are contacting us and saying, "Oh, crowdsource funding, we're a bit nervous on that." Towers, you're the guy that seems to understand all this. You're writing all that. So we are available under our consultancy business, Towers Business Development, if you want assistance for that with clients.
Okay.
And obviously we'll give you a proposal on a client-by-client basis. I'm happy, though, to talk to the clients. I don't want to sign people up to be paying us money if I don't think they're going to be eligible or they're not of the they're not of the mindset. They would buckle under an intermediary's interview, for argument's sake. So I'm happy. In that case, we say we'll give an hour free interview by Skype or webinar, but preferably by Skype, because I like looking at them when I'm doing that, and we don't have to go through all this, what we've done today then. And if that's of interest, and obviously we are in Townsville, so we can come around and see you. And if you wanted us to get involved in anything like that. But if not, you just go ahead, and when you're ready, Evelyn will contact you in a couple of months' time to see how you're going, working through that training material and how you're going, and you've got any questions, because we want you to blend into it, and you will be advised of our members' webinars. There's about 10 a year. and the first one's in February, but I can't remember the date. It's towards the end of February. We'll be sending. It's mentioned in the members alert that you'll get, if you haven't already got it, tomorrow. And all you do is just log on, register for that, and we talk for about 45 minutes to 60 minutes on some issues, and it's all part of trying to. Probably me trying to encourage you to look at certain areas, if I can put it that way. Obviously, it's always going to be material that we've written something on. So good luck, and congratulations on your initiative of really going into this space, because I find that some accountants say they're going to do this and then they never get around to doing it. And so good luck, and I look forward to working with you.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Peter.
Thanks, Dianna. Thanks, Francis. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.